I don't even know how to feel about this. I'm like, what? We're buying Gaza, or are we buying it, or we're just taking it over? And like, I was saying to my team, I'm like, it feels a little like, you know, your best friend has pancreatic cancer and you feel really sorry for her, but instead of just feeling sorry for her, you somehow transfer the pancreas to your body. Like, now you've got pancreatic. Like, I'm not sure I wanted to help quite this much. I'm not sure I wanted to help quite this much, but I am open-minded to what Trump is saying. Let's play some sound just so people can hear from the president himself. Hold on. SOT list dropped off by Doug Brunt, the Brunt Bureau. Here it is in SOT 2, where he's proposing this. By the way, Netanyahu's here. He had a meeting with Trump, and they had a joint presser last night. And Trump surprised everybody. Even his senior staff reportedly did not know this was coming. I'm sure a couple of them did, but most of them did not. And there'd been no like major announcement coming tonight, so everybody was like, "What did he just say?" And he did say something very significant, and he said it repeatedly. It wasn't a mistake. So here's SOT 2.
The only reason the Palestinians want to go back to Gaza is they have no alternative. The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, will own it, and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area. Do a real job, do something different. Just can't go back. If you go back, it's going to end up the same way it has for 100 years. I'm hopeful that this ceasefire could be the beginning of a larger and more enduring peace.
So the proposal appears to be that we are going to, all right, and it hasn't been like sketched out exactly, but it appears to be that we would not, though he gave an answer that was ambiguous, send troops necessarily over there, but that we are going to take over Gaza, at least temporarily. We're going to level what's left of the buildings. We're going to excavate the ground to get rid of the some 30,000 bombs that they say are still there, planted and awaiting, explosion or on reserve for Hamas. That during that time, we are going to strongly encourage Egypt and Jordan to take the Palestinians that they have steadfastly resisted for years, and especially since 10/7. They don't want them. They're like, this is the troublemaking group. And we don't want them moving into Egypt or Jordan. But he says they will take them. Trump actually said, they say they won't take them. I say they will. And that we're then going to develop Gaza into what Trump says will be like a new Riviera. And we're not going to pay for it. We're going to somehow get the Saudis, UAE, and I don't know who's the third to pay for it. And that then there's going to be beautiful buildings where everyone can go and work and visit like a tourist. But who's in charge at that point? Like, he doesn't seem to be saying we'll own it forever, though he might be. Again, it's all very unclear today with me because it was unclear last night with Trump. But so far, I'm hearing very positive reaction from Alan Dershowitz, who's been a major advocate for Israel since the start. Ben Shapiro tweeted something out very, very positive. He tweeted out in part, undoubtedly the most extraordinary and unexpected element of Trump's first term was his remaking of the Middle East and the Abraham Accords. He achieved that Nobel Prize-worthy accomplishment by thinking outside the box, recognizing hard realities and ignoring the conventional idiocy of the blob. Here he goes again with Gaza. This vision is absolutely transformative. And then you have Rand Paul with the following. The pursuit for peace should be that of the Israelis and the Palestinians. I thought we voted for America first. We have no business contemplating yet another occupation to doom our treasure and spill our soldiers' blood. And the Palestinians don't seem too keen on it, 18 hours in either. So what do you guys make of it?
I mean,
the argument against it is pretty easy and obvious, which is that Americans didn't sign up for another nation building project. When you've got Lindsey Graham saying, I don't know about this one, man, then you know that you've really gotten into some special kind of place. It's
Fair point.
you can't own a piece of this land. You can't run a whole chunk of it and guarantee the removal of debris without deploying American forces. That's just not going to happen. So if that was to take place, we would have our soldiers there, which means our soldiers will die on Gazan soil. I don't see how you avoid that happening. No one has been able to avoid that happening with whoever's in charge of Gaza in its history. So it's pretty easy to argue against that on the Rand Paul terms. The argument for what Trump did is that he's not going to actually do it. That what he's trying to do is kind of a nod to what Ben Shapiro was saying, which is, and Trump reiterated this yesterday, and he's been saying this since he's been president and president-elect, which is that October 6th of 2023 was intolerable. We need to think differently about that going forward. And the October 6th mindset is that Palestinians will run Gaza. If that means Hamas is in charge, then I guess that means Hamas is in charge, and the people who live in Palestine in the Gaza Strip will sort of periodically wage constant war against Israel. That's unacceptable going forward, as is the notion that the neighboring countries are not going to lend a hand in helping out what comes next. The sad thing is that neither Israel nor the United States nor people in Gaza and the surrounding area have come up with any plan about what to do with Gaza after this war. The ceasefire deal is not a plan of what to do with Gaza after the war. So what Trump is doing, the defense of what Trump is doing, is that he's sort of moving the Overton window. He's saying, hey, look, maybe you should take some refugees. Maybe there is a future that we can imagine in which this marvelous piece of real estate on the Eastern Mediterranean is actually used to build positive things and not just terror tunnels. That's to the good. The problem with it is that you are using an implied threat, and what happens when you have to go through with it. And it'll be very interesting to see what Saudi Arabia in particular says. I think they woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning Saudi time to say, no.
Right.
Because Trump was insisting that Saudi Arabia is going to be basically cool with something like this, and
here's
as part of their normalization.
Here's what we have so far in terms of world leader reaction, at least from that region of the world. Hamas, according to the New York Times, immediately rejected mass relocation. A senior Hamas official said that this is a recipe for creating chaos and tension. What's needed is the end of the occupation and the aggression against our people. Then Egypt, their foreign minister spoke to the prime minister and the foreign minister of the Palestinian Authority about removing debris from Gaza, expediting humanitarian aid, and starting recovery programs without the Palestinians leaving. So not going there. Jordan's King Abdullah II has also strongly opposed the plan, saying that peace can only be achieved through a two-state solution, not through forced relocation. Okay, there's not going to be a two-state solution, so fine. We can continue pretending that that's on the table, but it's not. Then there's Turkey. It's even wrong to open that discussion, to discussion, says the foreign minister. Turkey's against any initiative that would exclude the Gazan people. And the Saudis, their foreign minister said in a, quote, sharply worded reaction that it is backing an independent Palestinian state, and that backing is a firm, steadfast, and unwavering position. So, I mean, no one's talking about a Palestinian state in this Trump plan. It's like they're going to disperse to Egypt and Jordan, the ones who have not wanted them all along. I mean, I got to be honest, though, you guys, how are they living in Palestine right now? How's anybody living in Gaza? It's rubble.
Through enormous amounts of international aid. I mean, the thing about this is it is crazy in about 1,000 ways. I mean, Donald Trump exerting pressure on the Canadians and the Mexicans to say, this is what we do. You need us, so therefore we'll turn the screws and you'll do what we want. The same thing cannot apply to the Middle East. I mean, the Abraham Accords, which Ben Shapiro said was a great achievement, I agree with him, but those fall apart the second the Trump administration says we are going to, against international law, by the way, and against the Geneva Conventions, which prohibits, large-scale forcibly moving populations out of their territory. I mean, it's a crazy thing to do. But, Matt says, it would require American troops in some way. There's not going to be any UN troops. No one is going to agree to this. But if the American troops have to be there, they will probably be killed on the ground, some of them anyway. That's true. It's also true that they'll be killed other places. I mean, remember that Osama bin Laden's big complaint was American soldiers in Saudi Arabia, where he was from, the Holy Land there. They don't tell me that they think the Dome of the Rock and Palestinian territories are any less holy. They're always mentioned. Also, keep in mind that you have a restive population in the West Bank, which is right there, cheek to jowl with Israel, and has an enormous amount of support for Hamas these days. Palestinian Authority run, but the PA has been terrible. They're corrupt. There's a million things to say about them. The Egyptians and the Jordanians, look, I mean, you can't negotiate in this sense, is that the Egyptians have a peace deal that was made with Israel in the 1970s. I mean, that's been a very, very important thing for some semblance of stability in the Middle East. The Jordanians, I mean, you think about the terrorists that killed Israeli athletes at the 1972 Olympics. The name of that terror group was Black September. Black September was an event in Jordan in which the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan attacked the Palestinian refugees. They were fighting. The Palestinians attacked them, and the Jordanians attacked back. I mean, the Egyptians had a problem with Muslim Brotherhood getting into government. That's why they don't allow Palestinians to come through that southern border at Rafah Gate. Nobody is going to agree with this.
They don't want them.
They don't want them. You can't make them. Well, we're going to make a deal. No. They have, 40, 50 years of doing this and very particular reasons of their own stability. The Jordanian monarchy, for instance, or the Egyptian government, for some deal with Donald Trump, they're going to potentially destabilize their own governments. Not in a million years. And also, you can't kick people off their land. I agree with the premise.
And so far as Gaza still exists, they've already been kicked out. It's like Israel did that. Gaza is destroyed. Like that is done. I don't think now if we go beyond Gaza, if we're talking about all of Palestine and the West Bank, yeah, you got to kick people out. But Gaza's done. Unless somebody goes in there and rebuilds it, there is no long-term sustaining of that area for these Palestinians. So they're going to have to go somewhere or do something. And he's basically saying, we're not going to fund the rebuilding while you're sitting there. Like, get out, we'll level it, we'll clean it up, but for a price. Like, we're going to need to rebuild it, and we may have some stake in it on an ongoing basis. Again, that piece of it is unclear. But
I mean, is that America's responsibility?
To say that he's moving them out is not true, because I think really Israel did that.
I mean, they're all still within the kind of contiguous borders of Gaza because, as we have both pointed out, nobody is willing to take them. I mean, when we were rebuilding Berlin and Tokyo, the Germans and the Japanese stayed put. I mean, obviously, I am somebody who is incredibly...
After World War I, we did get rid of a bunch of Germans from the, Sudetenland land. They got kicked out.
Yeah, which kind of created World War II. So it's a problem because the Sudeten Germans, when they were pushed out, created the crisis in 1938 where the Germans took back part of Czechoslovakia and then all of Czechoslovakia. So, I mean, you create these long-term problems when you're moving populations against their will. But, I mean, the thing is that I do agree with someone like Ben Shapiro. I mean, I've always been criticized for being hawkish on this issue. Is that October 6th and October 9th are no longer sustainable. In what you can tell from what Donald Trump said, and keeping in mind, he's done so much stuff over the years off the cuff that has then become policy. Note in this that he was reading off notes.
He was reading, yep.
This was actually something that was not just, he just had an idea. This was written down, and he was presenting this, and this was a plan, with malice aforethought that some people would think, right? But I mean, he has an idea here, and the one idea that you can say that everyone understands, but this is the two-state solution is finally fully dead, and that is coming from the president of the United States.
Although we don't know how long.
I think it's interesting. It's bold. You have to give him points for a bold plan that both Ben and Alan Dershowitz, like two of our most prominent Jewish Americans, said, I never even envisioned something like this. And Alan Dershowitz is going off. For 40 plus years, 50 years, I've been at the forefront of dealing with every single Israeli leader and American president in trying to forge a better situation for Israel. Never even crossed my mind that this would be a potential possibility, and sounded excited about the fact that this very outside the box thinker, President Trump, threw something new into the mix that everybody in the world was like, huh? What? I think it needs some time to be digested, to be kicked around, to be criticized. That's all fair too, but not to be knee-jerk dismissed, because the one thing we know, Kmele, is that nothing has worked so far.
Yeah, I mean, I think you, as you said when you were laying this out, so many of the details are amorphous. We don't actually know what any of this means. He's insisting that we're going to take it over, we'll own it, and folks won't be able to come back, but we're also not going to have our military there. I don't know how those two things work together. This is kind of par for the course with Trump in some respects, in that this is his truthful hyperbole strategy being deployed again, just like Greenland, just like Mexico, the Mexico-Canada tariffs very recently, where you say something bold and audacious, you promise some horrible consequence if folks don't comply with what you want. But as with the Mexico-Canada situation, he never actually laid out any sort of success criteria. So what he ended up settling for, so far as I can tell, doesn't actually seem to be particularly consequential.
We continue to face uncertainty when it comes to the economy, with a perfect storm brewing as Social Security and Medicare hit a breaking point, as the largest generation is hitting retirement. A smaller workforce means a smaller tax base. You pair that with our growing national debt and our rising cost of living, and we could have a very big problem on our hands. So what are you doing now to protect your family for the future? Are you diversifying? Gold can be very useful to you in this. It can be a safe haven in hard economic times. And Birch Gold has a super great reputation, and they will make it very easy to diversify a portion of your savings, if you so choose, into physical gold. Birch Gold will help you transition an existing IRA or 401k, in whole or in part, into an IRA in gold, and it will not cost you 1 cent out of pocket. Protect your future today. Text MK to 989898 and get your free info kit on gold and a copy of The Ultimate Guide for Gold in the Trump Era, with a foreword by Donald Trump Jr. There's no obligation, just information. Birch Gold has earned the trust of countless Americans looking to safeguard their savings. You just text my initials, MK, to the number 989898 today. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.